Hey there, everybody. Happy February. Hope this video finds you well. Had some things on my mind and I thought I'd share them with you. So let's talk about it. So there's a lot of turmoil going on in the world right now, but then again, isn't there always? Talks about tariffs and all the ramifications for Mexicans and Canadian industries. Talks about real estate collapsing, talks about mass unemployment, talks about how AI is going to take all the tech jobs, talks about the strife between the collapsing birth rates, talks about crashing airplanes all over the world. Yeah, sounds perplexing when you first start to look at it. But the reality is that those things are all the cards that we are dealt. So I've been around long enough to have seen many circumstances. I mean, let's face it, even in the last decade, the sky was falling when the pandemic happened, and well, now it's hardly a memory. Well, it's a memory, but it hardly seems like it matters. I can remember when free trade was a big deal. I can remember when, well, how about a world war? Think that was a big deal? The point I'm making is that these are the cards you're dealt. So, when I was a young man, I fancied myself a card player. Now, I can't shuffle worth shit, so I'm just going to hold them. But you'll find that most young men of a certain level of motivation will really think that they can get into blackjack or poker. Don't take my word for it. There is no shortage. Go to any university campus. You will find a poker club, or you will find guys who routinely go to the casinos and play blackjack. And the reason these two games are taken as young men, and maybe young women, but I only know about young men, the reason they take such a shine to these games is that there's a perception that you can beat the system. It's a hack. So for example, in blackjack, depending on the game of blackjack, there are several rules. You can go online and you can look up the rules that give you the greatest advantage against the house. For example, if the house has 17 or more, you have to keep, or if you have 17 or less, no matter what the house is standing on, you have to keep hitting until you exceed that. Or again, it looks like they might have 19, 20, 21. The point is that there's a whole list of things that someone can memorize to try and beat blackjack. And of course, then of course, the average person or the average young man who's cocky will think that he can beat the system with his own intuition. And I can remember as a younger man, oh Lord, going into different gambling establishments, and I thought I had a system. And after several hours, and I won't tell you how many, but it's not 1, 2, or 3, or 10 or 20. I found myself in a bit of a hole. Not an unbelievable hole, but a hole that was enough that it hurt. And it then dawned on me that everyone you ever talk to who gambles always says, oh, I always break even. To some degree, I have to determine if that's true or not, because the casinos are rather impressive, and I don't believe that they're made on breaking even. But those games were all about the cards that you're dealt. Sometimes you get a sweet hand. In this particular case, this is 20. So if you're playing blackjack, you'd be set. But in this case, you'd get a 6, and you go, I'll hit again, and then you'd get 8. Oh yeah, and then you're going to get 15, and then you're going to keep hitting, and then you're going to get 20. And then you stand, and then all of a sudden the dealer gets blackjack, and all of your bullet sweating is for nothing. You know, one of the reasons I think they have booze so readily at the casinos is not only so your judgment can be clouded, but so you can medicate your wounds when things just don't seem to be going your way. Now, some guys will play poker. Poker is, it's perceived that you're just playing against other guys. There's no house to play against, but for some reason, there's always going to be one or two players who are just naturally better. They're better at reading people. They're better at, they may have better intuition. I can't really tell you why, but usually in a group of poker players, there's always going to be someone who excels. They become the big fish in the little pond. And again, that is a game that is comprised of getting different hands of cards. And when you're dealt a hands of cards, you almost immediately know if you're going to do well or not. Some guys who are less advantaged, these are the guys who play poker, no matter what hand they get, because it's a combination of the cards you get, but how skillful you are at bluffing and fooling into everyone that you've got. You'll have some guys who are like, I'm all in, and they're in the third hand, and they get blown out pretty easily. And the point is, it becomes a high wire balancing act to becoming good at it. Some people do, some people never do. And the real challenge is that the guys in those small groups that do become good at it, well, they then go to bigger ponds, and then they get their ass handed to them by players who are better than them, because let's face it, there's always a player in any game that is better. And so we look at these problems. And, I sit on Facebook sometimes and I watch the machinations of everyone lecturing about, how Mr. Trump should do this and he should assess this and he should do that. But I don't know if you noticed, he's the guy running the world and you're not. Now, does that make him wiser than you? No. But for whatever reason, he's been able to figure out how to have a really spectacular life, and that is now the most powerful man in the world, and he can do what he wants. But here's the thing. No matter how excited you get over the hand of cards that you feel you've been dealt, the game is going to go on. Maybe you're employed in the tech field, and a lot of tech workers right now are quite terrified. Tech workers and clerks and people whose jobs are not particularly complex. They're very terrified because through the march of technology, what I call the machine, or in this case it's AI, is becoming so competent that those jobs are going to be replaced by a worker that doesn't need a paycheck or a nap or to go home. Is that a big deal? Yeah, sure. If you're not expecting it, you can go on YouTube and you can find the videos about, type in how AI replaced my job. And there will be people who will be decimated. Just like at the casino, there are guys. I knew a guy once when I was younger. His wife actually secretly gambled away everything, including the deed to their house. And then he found out about it in the aftermath, and it wasn't pretty. 20 years later, he's rebuilt his life, and I'm not going to go out on a limb and say everything's fine, but in that dark moment, things didn't look so great. But the point is, that was a hand of cards. In that particular case, he was dealt a hand of cards that was sort of unfair, but the point is, he was dealt no matter what. You know, maybe you have a relationship that is in turmoil, whether it's romantic, whether it's with your children, whether it's with a friend. You must understand every time you get together, you're dealing each other some cards. You're having these little get-togethers where you play. A card game is like many battles inside a war. And I'm not so much saying that we're at war with the people in our lives, but we are in a constant negotiation of balance. And you may find that the cards you're dealing with in that relationship are creating imbalance. And while it is true, a lesson that I have learned in my life is overemphasizing the importance of the cards that you get handed. So when the game may very well still be on, there have been games that I've been involved with where the cards were dealt and they were terrible. And it caused me actually to be the spoiled kid who said, I'm not playing. And I can readily think of circumstances where I could have kept playing that game. And it could have worked out a lot better in my or both of our favors instead of actually withdrawing from the game totally. There will be games, however, that, you know, at the end of the game, you just get, you know, if you've ever played any card game, whether it's Euchre, Crazy Eights, or Go Fish, sometimes the deck just keeps giving you the crappy hands. And for whatever reason, I'm sure everyone has played the game where at the end of the game, you lost by such a huge margin. In cribbage, it's called being skunked. You lost by such a large margin, it almost defies description. But I would suggest that most people who get skunked in the game of cribbage don't stop playing cribbage, because there's always another game waiting. So my greatest encouragement to all of you in regard to the cards that are being dealt in the world right now is to give yourself some clarity, to sit back and say to yourself, yeah, you know, maybe it looks a little dark right now. You can twist your knickers in a knot till you're blue in the face. You can have debates and you can have arguments, but that is like debating which bathroom in Buckingham Palace Prince Charles is going to use, or King Charles rather. He's going to use the bathroom he wants, regardless of your opinion. Regardless. These people are put into place in a position of absolute power, and so often, if you look at the trail through history, what we were getting so excited about has turned out to be far more advantageous on the big picture. A good example is if you look at the medical draconian practices that went on during the pandemic, it has actually been what has caused now a resurgence in some medical accountability, especially with the appointment of Mr. Kennedy in the States as the health dude. You may not all agree with him, but you know, a guy who's physically in shape, who understands what goes in, goes out, versus the land whales that were in the position before and then generally unhealthy people. And I don't mean to be disrespectful. The bottom line is they weren't, the people in health positions previous to him, and in a lot of cases, are not healthy people. They really shouldn't be in the job. If you're going to be in the job, you should be qualified for the job, and that starts with your health, especially if it's a health minister. But I digress. The point is, at the end of the day, folks, is that you're always going to be dealt a set of cards. Always going to be dealt a set of cards. And what can you do to prepare for the cards you get dealt? Well, make sure you're in mentally good shape. You know, the guy at the casino who's been playing till 4 a.m., I would go out on a limb and, you know, maybe smoking and drinking and just, chasing something that's filling that hole inside him. Maybe make sure that you are instead spending some time working on your mental fitness, saying to yourself, am I indulging in the things that are going to make it so that it doesn't matter what the cards I'm dealt? Maybe in regard to your money, if you're, a lot of people, you can ask them what their fears are, and a lot of people's fears will be related to money. Money or relationships or safety, those are pretty much the three of them. And if you ask yourself and you say, gee, these are three areas that I'm pretty concerned about, well, maybe you have to put your nose to the grindstone and create a beachhead so that if you are dealt a set of cards that you don't want, it doesn't blow things up. And that may mean you have to buckle down and put some money or resources away. That may mean in regard to your relationships, you may have to spend some time working on your mindset so that you may have a relationship that's dysfunctional and you know it. You know it all the time. And despite the dysfunction, you remain in it, but you have a core feeling that there's a problem, and the end of that problem is that it may fail. And so then you say to yourself, okay, perhaps I'm going to prepare myself for it failing, or maybe you have to deal the cards yourself. Like deal the cards that are not the cards that the person you're with will want to receive for the benefit of everyone in that particular arrangement. And that's your relationships. You may be in a job. You may be in a job that you hate. I'm going to tell you right now that the jobs that AI is replacing, there is no one who, when they were 5 years old, laid awake at night going, dear Lord, please make it so I can become a data entry person. There's no one who laid awake at night going, dear Lord, please make it so I can answer the phone at some company endlessly. The point is that the cards that will be dealt are going to be a path to greater expansion, opportunity, and a better life than you can even realize it. But it's important for you, when you consider all the factors and considering all the things that have happened in the world before and considering all of the ways you can be prepared, it's very, very important, my friends, to make sure that you're not affected and you just play the cards that you're dealt.